Welcome to a latest edition of Badger Beer Report here, and I'm here with John DeGroote, who is the CEO and head brewmaster, or we'll call him head brewer. Y'all, some of y'all push back on the master part. I don't, because I think you're all masters, but whatever. Head brewer of New Barons Cooperative in Milwaukee, y'all, and they are in what's the warehouse called?
The Lincoln Warehouse.
Yes, with their friends Component in Terzala. The Lincoln Warehouse. We'll get into that. Y'all has a storied history in Milwaukee brewing, so we'll talk about that. But thanks for joining me, John. If you can't tell in my voice, y'all, I'm really excited about this one.
I should be.
Yeah, you already know. Well, thanks for joining us. So New Barons is a brewing collective, y'all. And they are the only cooperative, and they are the first one in Wisconsin. I believe history. John can tell me if I'm right or wrong. Yep, and you founded this cooperative, correct?
Correct. Yep. Member owner number one. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's hear why you started this and what's what's the basis behind it, the origin story for y'all, because it's I'm sure it's fascinating. I don't know it myself.
Sure. Well, I think there's a lot of things that connected at the right time. I have the typical story of I had a corporate job and I hated it and wanted to do something that was more fun, and I had the homebrewing hobby. You've heard that story a million times before. So I definitely had that part. Second part was I'm actually not from Milwaukee. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. And when I moved here, which was 2010, I didn't know anybody. I had literally one friend and my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife. And for the first few years living in Milwaukee was kind of that way. And I've always had this yearning to how do I establish my roots here? How do I get a community? How do I grow my community around me and become a part of the Milwaukee community? And so when I got into this brewing habit and decided to start the business, I was like, how can I use this platform, to overlap with a community aspect of me trying to make it here in Milwaukee? And so I had approached some of my close friends at the time about, starting this brewery. And again, I had this community thing behind me the whole time. And I was just looking that up. I was like, community-owned breweries, what does that look like? Just researching, different business models that do that. And I stumbled upon what was now no longer Black Star Brewing Co-op in Austin, Texas. And then I also heard of Fair State, which everybody locally knows out of Minnesota, which is also a cooperative ale brewery. And I actually traveled to Minneapolis and I talked to the owner of Fair State, to kind of pick his brain about the business model and how it works and stuff like that. And I was like, this kind of really sounds right for me and sounds right for New Barons. And so that's how it was born. And I had a lot of different people kind of getting involved in the project. And I was like, how do I give back to these folks? I don't have any money yet. Let's see if we can make them a part of the ownership group, or part of the early steering committee, board of directors that will kind of write this ship forward. We actually got incorporated in 2016. Which was 4 years before our taproom opened. So it was kind of a long grassroots lead-in period to get our brand started. Around late 2017, early 2018, I came to this taproom, which was not New Barons yet. It was Lighton Brewing Company, owned by James and Tommy. Great guys in the industry, no longer, unfortunately, RIP. And they took it upon themselves to offer me, if we can buy them just one fermenter, then they will allow us to come in and start brewing beer on their system. So we can kind of learn the ropes of the commercial side of the industry. And with that beer, which I think at the time we got like 12 quarter barrels run, we could sell it to bars around Milwaukee. So that's what we did for the first, 2 years of our commercial brewing existence. We didn't have any, business to consumer facing entity. We sold all of our beers to bars in the area. Namely, we sold it to a bar that's no longer Tonic Tavern, which is now the site of Milwaukee Brewing Company owned by Eagle Park. We sold probably 80% of our beer through that watering hole. But it was a good way to get our community to grow a little bit. So, we're this community-owned business. That means anybody can, own the brewery. So I think we ballooned from, at the time we had like 20 to 50 owners. We got over to 200 in just a few short months because people started to learn about our brand. They got to start tasting the beer. They liked the beer, and they're like, "Oh, I want to buy into this brewery." And so we did that for a couple of years. Then James and Tommy gave me the news that they were going to move out. And they were going to go to that bigger place down the street or up the street, closer to the lake. And they're like, "Do you guys want this old tap room?" And we were like, "Yes." And so that's what we did. We worked out a deal with them. We bought all their old equipment for the most part. But then we completely redeveloped the tap room space. We added like an upper mezzanine level, and we did the whole bar fixtures, all of that. And we finally opened our first brick and mortar, if you will, in 2020, which was a great year, of course, to open up a brewery.
Hey, you're still around. You're still around.
That's right. That's small business. There's always going to be a hurdle to overcome. But that was quite a big one.
What year was what month in 2020? Because that's important.
That is important. You're right. It was actually late August, which at the time seemed like, hey, maybe this is starting to get behind us. So the timing seemed right at the time. But sure enough, 2 months later in the fall, everything kind of got skittish again. So, but I mean, Milwaukee did an okay job of letting us still operate, but with restrictions. We don't want to go back to that time.
No. But I mean, it's really, really intriguing and interesting because that's one question I've been asking since we started Badger Beer Hour was how did y'all, how am I still talking to you after the pandemic and how after all that and how the transition and all that. But since y'all were starting, that's not really. I mean, it's an interesting question, but it's not really anything. It's different for someone who was out before, but it's just either way, it's wild.
I know we did do the. We authored the beer drive-through. I don't know for people that remember that. That was a good way for us. It was right before we opened. It was in the spring of that year. And we were like, let's grow some brand recognition before the tap room opens. And it was also a good lead in to get friends in the industry because we ended up working with, 8 or 9 different breweries to put that on. And it was great. It was this one way we kind of sort of faked it till we made it, during the pandemic. And then afterwards, afterwards we had other struggles too, to things we had to do. But.
I'm actually thinking that maybe the fact that y'all didn't have a tap room, the pandemic rolls in, maybe that was more helpful actually than if you had something established. So like, because y'all were just y'all were hustling, for lack of a better word, just before that. So the hustle just keeps going. It's not, you know what I mean? Like when you're hustling, you're hustling. And whatever kind of things hit your way, you're just like, all right, I'm just going to, pivot here, pivot there. It makes it easier to pivot. Good on y'all. So as the first, y'all are the first co-op brewery in Wisconsin, right?
Right.
That's correct. Okay. How's that cooperative shaped your mission and vision compared to a traditional brewery? Like, put us in there and let us know because we're just used to the traditional brewery thing. And what are the core values that drive New Barons?
I think that probably the most common misconception about us in co-op is like, are we like a crowdsourced brewery? It's not exactly the right way to say it. We're not like a mob craft where we're putting recipes out for people to approve and then, we brew anything, we have our own beers, we have our own brands. Really what it is that we're just owned by our patrons. So we have, I think as of this week, we have 680 people that actually own a share of the brewery. And with that share, you can get as much involved or as little involved as you want. Biggest way you can get involved is you can run for a board of directors. You can become my boss, essentially. I'm the CEO. I report to the board. Or you can have a very, casual relationship with the brewery and volunteer at events. A couple of the people there that day were, volunteers that were in our membership at Lager and Friends. When you and I talked, You vote on certain things, so we have board of directors vote every year, but we sometimes put other things to votes too, like types of merchandise we're going to get, things like that. And then, of course, we have the very base level mug clubby type perks as well. I think we offer one of the most competitive mug clubs in town. If you're an owner, you get the first beer free every time you come into the brewery, which is kind of a cool one, instead of it's like $1 off or something like that. But I digress. To answer your question, how has it shaped our mission statement? I think it's been focused on that hyper local community. Right now the craft beer scene is a bit saturated. There's a lot of different options, a lot of different players. We're almost like purposely small, I think, as a result of this community. We've stayed true to our values of, what is more and enough. And right now, enough is just selling beer to the people within our immediate community. We allow non-owners, obviously, to come to the tap room. But it's been great. Everyone, when they come in, they kind of know each other. We have sort of like a dive bar-y type atmosphere in our tap room. Like I said, everyone knows each other, and it's a very friendly environment, and it very much is like a home away from home for a lot of our ownership. And so, staying true to that is, just keep it cozy, keep it communal, keep it kind of small scale.
Yeah, that was one of the things real quick. My anecdotal evidence, I've been to your tap room once. I walked in and I felt like I was at a family reunion. I felt welcome. I felt like that guest at the family reunion, if that makes sense. Like, hey, my girlfriend brings me to a family reunion. I don't know anybody, and everybody's just so welcoming and like, open and saying, hey, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Like the vibe in y'all's tap room, in my opinion, exudes the foundation that y'all are about. Literally, you walk in, it really feels like everybody, it's like Cheers almost. Everybody knows each other and everybody's welcoming. It's not like a clique thing. I didn't feel like I wasn't involved in the family. I felt, no, hey, we don't know this guy. We've never seen him before. How you doing? What's up? Come in, have this beer. You got to try.
It's more so, do you want to join our family? Yeah.
And then you're the people behind the bar were just so engaging, if that makes sense. And like, again, they probably, they didn't recognize me. And they were just like open. They're just like, hey, here's our thing. Here's what we do. Here's, it was this, and it was, y'all were packed. Y'all were packed. It was a Saturday afternoon. So kudos to that. And, I love to say that, stuff runs downhill. So, I mean, that has to be, y'all board and you fostering that kind of welcoming and really, really family vibe that y'all have going in your tap room. Highly recommended if y'all are there. Highly recommended. And you also have to hit Component and Terzala, but we can keep. You got to do the whole thing, y'all. You do. Yeah. It's a whole thing. But
it's a pilgrimage.
So before we go further, John, can you just give us a quick breakdown of what it looks like? So say I approach y'all and say, hey, I want to become a member. What does this tiers quickly look like, and the levels of involvement?
Yeah, I mean, everybody buys the same shares. There's no tiers of shares or anything like that. It's one share, that's it. It's $200 a person, and that lasts a lifetime. So it's not like an annual due. You just get in, you get all the perks, on day one when you sign up. But yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, you can get as little or as much involved once you're in as you would like. But yeah, think of everybody as just owning equal share in the same business. Yeah.
Excellent. So what do you see as the biggest advantage of the co-op model for the brewery and its members, particularly in this competitive craft market, which is, wild?
I think we already hit on it. It's just that community focus. When everything is so competitive, what we've done is we've fostered many loyal customers, if you will. People that want to come here, not necessarily because they're going on, a beer, trip on a day and want to visit like 8 different places. They just want to go there because it's their home. They're home away from home. And I think in that sort of sense, it gives us more of a hospitality bend, where we're not just advertising beer, which is great, but we're advertising like this is a place you want to be at. And I think right now, the environment, when it is that competitive, there's got to be something outside of just beer that gets you to come to a place. And for us, it's that, and it's a place that you can feel comfortable with others around you.
Before we move on to which is which I want to talk about, which is the beer. Well, I want to talk about it all, but any more misconceptions about the co-op model that you would like to disperse at this moment? Because you did one already.
Yeah, I don't really think so. I think I think some people, one other common one is like, so can anybody come in here and brew beer? Like, are you trying to work with anybody to make new product? The answer is not really. Do you have other brands like pilot projects that exist underneath your umbrella? The answer is no. We're all the products we make are our brand. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. So from my knowledge is that y'all specialize in lagers.
That's right.
What is the strategic decision behind that focus, especially in a market dominated by IPAs and other ale styles?
Well, I think as a craftsman, as the brewer, we're talking business side, and I'll transition to now I'm a brewer. The trick of any craftsman or artisan or artist is you kind of got to find that intersection of what you're good at and what the people want, right? Sometimes as brewers, we want to make a beer that maybe people don't want. It's maybe some obscure cask aged English style or something, not to shit on English beers not being popular or something, but you know what I'm saying? Like you do have to make the beer for the people ultimately. But if you can find one that you also enjoy to do, then that's the goal. That's the gold standard for you as yourself. And so for me, I was noticing every time I made a pale lager, clean, crisp beer, they would sell like that. And maybe it's the people's familiarity with those kinds of styles of beer. Domestic lagers have been around for a long time. But we have seen that the market, trends have started to shift towards those classic clean lagers again. I think the hazy IPA will always be here. Big IPAs will always be there. But as the craft beer market has matured, we have seen this return to, and that's why you're seeing festivals like Lager and Friends. You're seeing more breweries put out a basic lager on their venues. And so let's just lean into that a little bit. We've been trying to find our niche as brewers. It seems to be something that's getting more hip, something that we're good at, that's selling. So that's why we decided to make the move. We did that 2 years ago, which is probably even a little early for the Milwaukee market to kind of accept that. But each year we've seen more and more people kind of like, oh yeah, this is what I'm after. I want like a nice clean Pilsner, and I don't want a 9%, blah blah blah. I just want, a Pils.
Beer that tastes like beer.
Yeah, exactly.
Beer that tastes like beer.
And I think that's a great sign of the market. If there is, you see those brands kind of picking their niches and maturing. If I want like a really great sour on a given day, I'll go to Supermoon. They have tremendous like wild, funky stuff like that. Or if I want a really sweet hazy IPA, I'll go to Component next door. Hazy Lord is one of the best IPAs that you'll find in Milwaukee. But if you want a Hager, come to New Barons.
That's excellent. Back to your members. How do your member owners influence the beer development process? Can you share a story about how a beer came directly from a member's input?
Yeah, so a lot of the beers they didn't, like we said, we're not mob craft where we kind of farm out recipes. More so what we do is we get inspired by our members. So if there's some funny story or there's some great event or something that happened, or a group of members that are all, together on something, then we will brew a beer in their honor. We have so many examples. We have a cribbage league on Wednesday, for example. So we made a beer in honor of this cribbage league because they drank like hooligans. It's called Peggers Can't Be Losers, and it's a wheat lager. It's very simple, but they love it. For the longest time, we've had our flagship IPA was called Hot by Ziggy, which was in honor of a band where all the members of the band were owners of the co-op. So we did one in honor of the drive-thru that I talked about earlier called Drive-Thru Double. So all of these come from stories, members in the co-op, and usually it's the people that you start to see here a lot over time. And, you know, we're like, hey, you deserve a beer. You've done enough for the co-op, or you've been involved enough, or something like that, you know. And so that's how those things come about.
So how do y'all approach the distribution for New Barons beer? Both within Milwaukee, and I don't know, it doesn't seem like y'all go behind that. Are there plans for broader retail availability, or is this an ongoing discussion with y'all, or or is it a settled thing almost?
Yeah, we've actually sort of phased it out. I think we're a 3-barrel brewery, and I think as our popularity has grown and our taproom traffic has kind of increased, like, it sucks, but like, you don't make a lot of money in distribution at our scale. And I think we were doing it for a while just because we didn't really ever commit to it. And so we've kind of sort of phased it out as of this year. And we're really only taproom only at this time. And we do have a beer trailer that has 6 tap lines on it that we do beer gardens around town. We have like 28 beer garden dates this summer. And so not really doing any distribution outside of like just coming to you all in the suburbs sometimes. But someday we might revisit. If we grow, if the brewery does get bigger, then it might become more necessary. But at this scale, it's really not necessary. It's make the best dollar you can by selling beer direct to consumer.
And what I'm hearing, but I'm going to make it a direct question. What I'm hearing is that y'all are happy within the confines that you're at.
That's right. I mean, I think it is a fair statement. I think when you saw what, kind of went down at the end of last year, when we saw a shakeup and 4 or 5 brands closed, I mean, it sucked. I mean, a lot of these people are friends in the industry, but there was sort of a common theme, in any of those brands. And it was just that they got in over their head. And it's no fault of their own. Things were looking good of those brands early on, and they decided to expand. Then the pandemic hit. The whole thing kind of made it very complicated for those brands to continue to succeed, just because they're too big and there's too much competition. And so our goal this year was to be purposefully small. It's easier for a smaller player to survive than it is for a bigger player right now. We'll see what opportunity looks like, when we kind of get through this period of where craft beer is a little bit down right now. Yeah.
Well, I'm speaking for myself personally. I love that because the reason I say that is because on Badger Beer Report, we've been reporting about a bunch of different expansions, whether it be Ope, whether it be and we also have been covering some failed expansions like 1840 and Bloomer Brewing up north, who had expansions, and the 1840 thing just dropped yesterday. Yeah. So it's really, really tough. And shout out to 1840, and hopefully everything works out as far as them continuing to brew their wonderful beers in Bayview. But my point is that, there's a level of us, and us, I mean, people in the brewing community almost, feeling that we should have to be bigger. There's that whole, you know what I mean? Like, not everybody can be Lakefront, y'all. And Lakefront's been doing this for literally decades.
Right.
New Glarus has been doing it for decades. That's their model. That's great that they do that, but not everybody's set up for that model. So it's good to really hear that y'all are, with all there's grounded, if that makes sense, as far as like, who you are, what you want to do, and, how you want to deliver that to your people. And I also love the fact that you have a really good awareness of who you are and where you're at, because again, y'all with Terzala and Component, and you're right. Y'all accent them, and from what I know, pretty well, given that, I'm sure that people who come to New Barons go to all 3 of them at some point, because that's what I did.
Right.
So
absolutely.
like it's a collective thing. It literally is a collective thing, because it's like, oh, I can go up and get this weird, weird in a good way, lager up at Terzala, and I can go over here to Component and get my IPAs, and then I can roll into New Barons and get that wonderful black lager that y'all have. I think it's a Schwartz beer. Ooh, it was fire when I was there. I don't know what it's called. I don't care. Next time I go, I'll be walking. Y'all have that black lager? What's going on? I'm just gonna be like, let's go.
It's simply called black beer, and it's one of our core brands. We have it on all the time. Yeah. Business
Oh
Schwartz
yeah,
beer. You're right.
yeah. Any any lessons that you've learned since? I mean, I'm sure there are, but are there any lessons that have shaped your leadership and the brewery's direction? Things that we had to switch up because we're almost going into 10 years, so you have to have some kind of lessons.
Yeah, I think the best is to learn from your peers. So don't ever think you've made it to the top. You're the best at your craft. You're have an attitude that you're always learning. And when we've done collaborations with other breweries, like for example, this year we're doing a series called Lagerland, where I'm working with other breweries and making new and unique lagers. We've got a gathering place in here. We have an open here. I really try to savor those opportunities, and like, what do you think is cool? What do instead of being the brewer that's closed-minded and like, thinking what I'm making is king, I want to hear what, brewer X has to say. And you can pull a little bit, get some information. And, and that same applies on the business side. If you're talking to any guy out there space or whatever, there's always got a unique perspective. And the more you can absorb that kind of thing and these conversations with those folks, the better you'll be suited for success. And I guess the other thing is nothing's sacred. If something's not working, don't hold on to it, change it, and don't hold on to something too long.
Yeah. And y'all are in a good place for that because again, Milwaukee's scene is just so diverse. And with the different creative people that are involved, it's just really amazing. So you don't really have to go far for that great advice, if that makes sense, as opposed to up north, where you probably would have to go literally hours to find 4 breweries that you could correspond with the brewers and all that.
Absolutely.
So, and there's nothing that beats that, you rolling into, gathering place and talking to Joe and Matt. There's just nothing that can replace having a beer with somebody, and having that sit down. I mean, it's nice to talk to you over this, but I'd just rather be down there at New Barons right now, drinking that black beer and talking with you. And we can work on that. But couple more questions and we'll get out of here. So this is really what drawn me to one of the things that draw me to y'all is that are there any exciting new projects, collabs, or community initiatives on the horizon for New Barons that you could share today?
Yeah, so I talked about the Lagerland series already. I think we've got one in the works with Superboon, hopefully later this fall, where we'll do. Usually I say, Rob, what do you want to make? And he'll tell me, I'm like, all right, this is how we can do it, and we'll work together on cool ingredients and stuff like that. So that Lagerland series will be ongoing. I'm going to try to work with any brewery possible on this. Just try to spread the awareness of lagers. Sort of like Joe Gathering Place, putting on Lager and Friends. Like, I think the more we can put those in front of customers, the more we can make it hip. So I'm excited for that whole project. I know beer garden season's underway. We're kind of launching a membership program for frequenters for our beer garden. We're going to be selling these customizable like tumbler mugs that are insulated that you can use in the beer gardens, reuse, save as plastic, but then you get $1 off every pour as a member. So that's a new member perk that we're unveiling to try to reach that demographic, the people that are kind of satellite from our taproom, but living in the burbs where we're servicing them with our beer trailer. I don't think there's any other projects I can really share at this time, but I'll just give a little link there. Yeah.
I gotta dig. Yeah. That's part of my job. But here's something I think this is a question that I came up with that I was really intrigued by, which is how do y'all define success in the cooperative? Is it purely financial, or are there other key metrics that y'all talk about when you have your meetings?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the bottom line is very important for any business, but we do showcase like some of those community metrics, if you will, that are sort of tangible. Like we've shown like money we've raised for certain nonprofits, or certain member owners that have project or business. We showcase the number of people who own a small business that we try to promote in our tap room. We've done like a member marketplace in the past. People have shown their wares in the tap room. We do it around the Christmas time for the holidays, that kind of thing. And so we keep track. If you look at our website, you can go and see all those businesses on the community partners page. And so we show those kinds of metrics, and of course the number of members. Then right now we are working on like a comprehensive portal for our membership to see, what kind of beers they're drinking, things like that, and so Yeah, I would say it's those community metrics on top of course the standard business ones.
Excellent, excellent. And I think you already asked the one question I wanted to ask is, what motivated you to, move off of engineering background to launch a co-op brewery? But I think you answered that. But if you would like to expand on that, that'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's a typical story. I'll give a shout out to my wife there. She was the one who was finally like, "Why don't you write a business plan? Put your money where your mouth is." Yeah, and so I did.
Nah, that's great. That's great. That's great. All right. Well, we're gonna wrap this up here. I would, well, I just blanked. Anyway, we're gonna wrap this up here. I want to give John the last word as far as is there anything that that we missed here that you would like to say about New Barons? Anything that people should know about? And then also, where can we find you, like physically and virtually?
Yeah, I would say drink clean, cold, crushable beers. That's me as a brewer. But I would say definitely come check out our community. If you're someone that's looking to make some new friends, or you want to spread your business, or network, we're an awesome brewery, an awesome space for that. In addition to having an awesome beer. And where you can find us is at our taproom here in Bayview, 2018 South First Street. We do our beer gardens and Fox Point and Whitefish Bay. A few other ones randomly at Brookfield, but Fox Point's the main one. That's actually where I live, and that's part of the reason why we do our beer gardens up there. At the Longacre Pavilion, that's usually like every other Friday throughout the summer. And then virtually you can find us at newbaronsbrewing.com, social media, on Instagram, Facebook, and that's about it.
Well, I would like to thank John DeGroote for joining us here, CEO and head brewer of New Barons Co-op. I want to keep saying collective. Why? Co-op. The first and only, still only, right?
Still only,
in Wisconsin.
Still only.
There we go. There we go.
Some guy talked to me about starting another one. I haven't really heard from him yet. I tried to help him. Yeah, so.
Oh, okay. Well, you know how it is, as far as being someone like this, you know how it is. Sometimes a great idea does not sound great after you do some research. And sometimes it sounds great or not that great. You're still like, well, I'm going to do it anyway. So yeah. there's a big range there, but
you sound like an entrepreneur when you say that.
Yeah, I might be one. True. But thanks, John, for coming on here and explaining New Barons, because it's a fascinating business model and plan. And it's really, for me, my opinion is that it's really right in the beer lane, which is community. I believe beer is community. I believe every small town should have a brewery. We have bars, but a brewery is a different kind of vibe. A brewery, in my opinion, is more family. We're not going to go into the all's kids and brewery conversation. We're not doing that here, but I feel that there's a community involved beyond all the brew pubs, and if you're doing it right, you're fostering that. So on that note, y'all, we're always say here at Badger Beer Report, drink local when you can, if you can, and while you can. Cheers, y'all, and thanks again, John.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.